Hey, welcome. My name is Daniel, and this is Metal Sharpens Metal, the place where we analyze heavy music from a Christian worldview. Today, we've got another metalcore classic from the band Trivium. This is their song "Like Light to Flies." Yeah, I mean, this was many people's favorite song on this album. Be prepared for solos, great singing, harmonized guitars, so much double bass, like almost too much double bass. It was a lot of double bass, even for back then. But it's so good. It's so good. Everyone loved this song, especially.
There's an example of something where everybody agrees.
I'm pretty sure that this was the first song I heard from them, and it just instantly was like, yep, click, more, please give that. Thank you. Love it. So I hope you guys are excited. Hope you like it. Let's go check it out. Do I only wish? I think we can splurge and go for the 480p rather than auto. And yes, this is a very old song, but I have not seen the music video, so I'm actually really excited. All right, this riff. Wait. And the double bass doesn't sound like it snapped to the grid. Okay. What has happened to these? No. Don't even. Why does this keep happening?
That's twice now. Yeah, it has been twice.
Where I find these old music videos that I haven't watched or don't remember, and they have the wrong version of the song or awful audio quality. I'm peeved.
I am so peeved right now!
I'm quite peeved. Man, and it's a bummer. We don't get to have the nice music video. We'll watch all our boys doing their thing, jamming out. It's wasn't supposed to be like this. You deserved better. It's like the radio version, but it's also different drums. Like, that was weird. You'll probably notice a difference shortly here. Start with a couple power chords, and now two-stepping. Man. Driving kind of old school riff. That's kind of new. Yes, this riff. Ooh, yeah. With the harmony coming in the left ear. Yep. I present Trivium. This song is far from a tragedy. Oh, I love that chorus so much. Great harmonies here in the second part of the chorus. Back to the first riff, yep. Gosh, this song, I don't know if it'll ever get old. Oh man. Down. And the drums are kind of straightforward, right? But like, they really allow the guitars to shine and the vocals. Oh, he had the higher alternate harmony note. I don't know the terms. And then those big in the background. So many chills. Oh man. That harmony line coming in. All right, switch it up. A little tempo change. Our boys were in the solos. Little harmony there. Harmonized ending. Love it. Little humble drummer boys in the back. Getting a little bluesy there. Yep. Makes me so happy. Wow, wow, wow. This is so good. Is this considered classic rock at this point? Like, it's special enough to be, but is it old enough? Has it been long enough? Yep. Love to hear it. Sorry the music video didn't work out. That was an unforeseen bummer, but we're all good because the song makes up for it. There's just certain songs that are special always, and you are excited to show them to your kids when they get a little bit older. There is an explicit warning on this guy, just as a heads up. You got a couple songs with a couple 4-letter words, but this one is just, it's just one of those timeless classics in my mind. And it's funny because I don't know how to look at this objectively. I really liked it when it came out. That time in my metalcore exploration journey was filled with bands like Trivium, As I Lay Dying, Killswitch Engage, In Flames. I'm really drawn to melody, along with driving guitars that reinforce the point and aren't clashing, like to try to be really technical or crazy. And as a guy, I love technical playing. I tried to make some of my playing on drums technical back when I was in bands. It's fun to do in the moment. It's fun for the performance of it, but it's a little self-indulgent because it's like, this is not what people need to hear necessarily. This is not the point of the song right now. So when you can have the drums that get out of the way but do what they're supposed to, the support of that double bass is what they're supposed to be doing, then it just makes a really powerful song. All the great ingredients. Moving from the instruments to the vocals, the lead vocalist is named Matt Heafy. I think I heard him say Heafy. Matt has a great lower timbre to his voice, just that lower, rich tonality that I love. And when you have good melodies and phrasing, I think it just makes it super powerful. Now, I had originally planned to do their song A Gunshot to the Head of Trepidation, which I will now be referring to as Trepidation for short. That's just too long of a name to say over and over. And if I'm being honest, the reason that I picked Like Light to Flies instead of that song is a little bit selfish because I just like Light to Flies better. But the reason that I was wanting to do Trepidation for this video is because it has really deep lyrics, actually. They lay out the concept of a family that is being abused by this father, this overbearing father who is, I guess, killed or fantasized about being killed or threatened with that at the end. It's not a real story. but we know many examples of that story that have happened over the years, unfortunately, tragically. Now, I have a really visceral response to songs about family relationships and especially like failed family relationships. So the songs like Trepidation, where the father is the wicked character in the family, just make me want to round up every bad dad, put them in a big field and just kick their butts into gear and force them to be a good parent and a good husband.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. I think we've all seen enough.
And I'm only half joking because I wouldn't personally bear the sword against somebody unless I was like witnessing something in the moment, trying to protect someone. That's a different situation. But I also wouldn't shed a single tear if the justice system were to come down with full force on a father like this. Some of them even to the point of a death sentence. So yeah, I have lots of feelings tied up in this, as you can see. And it's not even because of like a horrible childhood or anything like that. I mean, my parents were amazing. But I've seen enough of this that it is sick and it goes against God's law. And that's something we're going to talk about a little bit later too. Okay, so Daniel, if you didn't want to analyze the Trepidation song, why are you talking about it so much? Astute question, avid listener. Please bear with me a little bit while I dive into Light for Flies, because I think that I can make a case that these might almost be sister songs, like Light to Flies and A Gunshot to the Head of Trepidation. Not that Matt necessarily wrote them that way, but just because I think the lyrics connect really well when you look at them side by side. All right, so let's dive into Like Light for the Flies. The main theme is that our culture is drawn to bad news and scary things and stories of tragedy and things like that, just like flies are drawn to light. The first verse here says that we have this avarice for bloodshed. Very dark way to describe that, but you know, I think we can see many examples of that. And it's funny that they say it's self-denying. It's almost like they might mean that we're fine with it as long as it's someone else's blood being shed. Or I think the more likely answer is that we are kind of fooling ourselves into being self-denying and pretending that we're pious about this desire for bloodshed. We're watching your suffering unblinkingly because we care about you. Yeah, that sounds legit, right? It kind of brings to mind someone who's like, oh, good heavens, it's so horrible. Oh dear, would you turn that up a little bit more? Oh, good heavens. Oh, I can't look away. Oh. And I'm also leaning more to that meaning because of the chorus saying that we devoutly wish for blinded eyes. And that would also go with that term hypocrite. You know, the hypocrite is beholding these things that they wish would never happen to them, but they love watching it happen to other people. And I'm not totally sure what this pre-chorus means. Maybe it just sounded cool, kind of, or if it was like a veiled threat from like the media companies that if you don't watch our programming, then you'll regret not watching it. Something like that.
You always think it can't happen to you.
And in this other part of the chorus I wanted to touch on, he says, hope is left in chain suspension. So yeah, if hope is suspended, then it's like we're watching these stories because we can't look away. We're fearful, we're terrified. So there's just like no hope left, nothing to hold on to. Well, I shouldn't say there's nothing to hold on to, right? There's always lies. You can hold on to those. That's fun. And with that in mind, I think you can kind of see the connection that I'm making to A Gunshot to the Head of Trepidation song. I said I wasn't going to say the whole title. We're so often drawn to these stories of tragedy. Sometimes it is mindlessly like flies. And sometimes we're drawn, I think, to stories of great evil because we really want there to be some justice enacted on these bad people. And that's a concept I kind of went over a little bit in the Opeth video because in that song, the lyrics were more kind of glorifying the evil deed of the son as possessed by the devil. Go watch that one if you haven't seen it, because there's a lot to get into there. But there's no real sense of justice or closure in that story. In Trepidation, there is a sense of justice, at least partially, you know, if somebody is going and enacting vengeance on his father. Now, with all these discussions of evil and justice and morality and fatherhood even, like there's all these terms that need to be defined in light of your worldview, how you know if something is moral or immoral, how you know if something is true justice or partial justice. A lot of us do have a sense of that, but I don't know if we've all gone to the foundation of all of that and seen what are we resting all that on top of. Now, Matt is not a Christian, so that automatically means that he has a different foundation for all these moral discussions in his worldview than I do. In another song on this album, Matt describes burning the scriptures, breaking down structures, burning the governing. So yeah, just this sense of anarchy and, you know, letting people have true freedom by not having any government over them, nothing ruling over them. And anarchy, you know, it's not a new thought, but I think that sometimes people don't think about it very vividly today. Just get the government out of it. Like that's like the default kind of position, is just remove the government. Hey, if we could have anarchy, that would be ideal. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but like it'd be sweet if we did, right? But I don't think that's where the implications stop. It's just what you smoke and who you marry. And we see examples all over clown world today of different things like that. But I will say I've watched a little bit of videos with Matt in interviews, and he had one day in the life of his normal kind of tour life and stuff. And he seems like a very smart dude. Between his working out, his musical warm-ups, things like that, he's super disciplined with it all. And when you hear him speak, like you hear his voice, you can tell that he's a pro at that too. He doesn't really have unnatural pauses like I just did. He doesn't really say a lot. He's just very deliberate and articulate. So it comes off like a really smooth podcaster type vibe. Very prepared and buttery smooth. So, terms that people use to describe other people's voices.
Mm-hmm. What else?
The point I'm trying to make is that he is far from being a slouch, and he works hard. So I'm sure that he has even debated it with himself and wrestled with some of these Christian points of view. But just to outline them anyway, we do need to consider that foundation that I mentioned of our moral framework. Because if that foundation is non-existent, or if it's floating in thin air, if it's not resting on anything, then that morality can be pushed and pulled any direction based on what's needed at the time. And this is why we need an unchanging standard giver, such as God. Because without that, consider the lyrics in trepidation again. Why shouldn't this dad hurt his son? Now, I know you'll say it's bad. Like, let's just think through this for a sec. We would all agree with that, right? But I want to ask the simple question, why? Why do you think that is the case, assuming you do? I don't think any sociopaths are watching this video right now, or psychos or anything. But if you are, heck off, psychos. Go away from here.
They are in for a bitter surprise. I am not to be truffled with.
Most people will agree that fathers should not be hurting their children or their spouses. So why is the question? People will kind of throw this statement out there and say, well, if you need a God to tell you what's wrong, then I don't want to hang around you, right? Because you clearly don't know enough here. You have to go ask some other external thing. The point I'm trying to make is that it all comes down to some kind of externality. Otherwise, it's just happening between here. And I really hope that what's happening between here in you is the same thing happening in between here in me, so that you don't hurt me, because I wouldn't hurt you. But I don't know if you have that same thought process. Like, I don't know if you have that same framework. And so if you don't ground it in anything, then it starts to raise more questions about, like, well, when does that context change for you? When does that become more about the freedom of one person than the other? So yeah, this is not something you can just throw I don't need God to tell me. You do. You actually do. And I would argue that everybody has that sense of God, not the Christian God, but everybody has a God that they look to as their ultimate source of their foundation for morality and their worldview and logic, and like where all that stuff kind of comes from. There's something at the back of all of that is unquestioned eventually. But think about it this way. If we're all just bags of goo that have evolved here from fish, and then, we have other bags of goo, aka kids. We use this weird word called kids, but we can also just call them bags of goo, right? If we do that, what's the problem with two bags of goo bumping into each other?
Let's not bicker and argue about who killed who.
And that clump of cells, like I mentioned, that the father clump of cells had, the father helped make that other clump of cells. So shouldn't he have some kind of right over it? I know. I'm making some very pointed arguments here that would make normal people feel uncomfortable, to be like, wait, why are you calling kids bags of goo and clumps of cells, and saying that you can own this clump of cells because you helped make it? So yeah, in the framework of a Christian worldview, we do not have a blind, pitiless, indifferent universe watching over us and not caring if these bags of stardust just kind of bump into each other and fizzle out, and then our things that we call thoughts are gone forever. Nobody remembers us. Like, that's not the Christian worldview, obviously. We have a God who has revealed in his word a certain standard of morality and laws that say that you are not to hurt your children, like, first and foremost, right? Let's set aside the whole, like, people are made in the image of God argument, and that they shouldn't hurt each other because of that reason. Like, that reason alone is enough to be like, okay, the debate's over, like, the argument's over. God has revealed it there. But he also says other things about fathers being called to imitate our Heavenly Father. We are meant to provide for our family. We are meant to not provoke our children to anger. And we are meant to disciple and train our children in the ways of the Lord. So yeah, this father in the story is obviously doing the exact opposite of all that. So there will be full justice from God, whether in this life or in the next fully. So yeah, I realize that I talked about trepidation a lot more than I talked about light for flies, at least lyrically. And so hope you won't fault me too much for that. But if there's something we can take away from the concern in Like Light to Flies about being addicted to tragedy and bad news cycles and things like that, if there's something we can learn from that, it would be, let's not make ourselves part of that news cycle. Let's not contribute to that by being awful, neglectful, absentee, or abusive parents. That's kind of like a bare minimum. It just goes into the call for sober-mindedness that the Bible says we need to have, the call for, again, not provoking your children to anger and making sure that you are raising them up in the fear and admonition of the Lord. That is a big call for everyone. I think especially for Christians, it is something that we need to take very seriously. Our King has given us marching orders and we are to follow them. So instead of watching the awful news cycle, go to church, be with your family, enjoy God's creation outside, pray to him, read his word, etc., etc. But also keep your head on a swivel. So, don't dive into news site conspiracies and just go down every single rabbit hole, but also don't keep your head in the sand all the time. There should be a balance, stuff like that. I guess life is full of all that junk. Anyway, thanks for coming to this, checking out this video with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Not heafy. It looks like heafy or heffy, like heavy. I know it's not that heavy to you, but to a guy named Hafey, it is heavy. Heffy. Cut that out. Stop it. Shame on you.
Shame on you.
Dude.